Hello my dear sewing friends, it's Alisa here with Thoughtful Creativity. Thank you so much for tuning in. And in this video, super exciting, I know you've been waiting for it, we're going to be making a super fun, fresh, colorful, modern color block top like this one, or you can also make it into a dress. Now I've actually made these quite a few years ago, and there's one on me, one on my dress form, and 3 other options including the dress. And every time I appear on a screen wearing one of these tops, you guys flood the comment sections with requests on how to actually make one of these. I would love to share with you today, my dear sewing friends, on how I make these color block tops, because it is truly so very easy, so very straightforward. If I can do it, then you can do it as well. I also cannot not add here that this is a wonderful scrap busting project as well. So if you have beautiful fabric scraps that are just waiting for that particular project, this could certainly be it. You can color block a lot of different garments, knits and wovens, with bust darts and without. I'm going to start by doing this adjustment to a pattern that has bust darts. So I will be using a bodice block with darts. You can use a pattern for a blouse or a top that has darts that you already own, that you know fits you really well, or you can draft your own bodice block with darts as well. So whichever way you prefer, either one is going to work. So grab whatever you have, go ahead and make a copy of your pattern. And anytime that you're working with asymmetric designs, you will need not just half of your pattern piece, but you will need a full front or back pattern piece, or whatever pattern piece you're working with. Let's start, and obviously I already have a sample that we can base our ideas on since I've made these in the past, but for you I would suggest to take a little piece of paper and a pencil and sketch out what are your ideas in terms of color blocking, how you would like to have that be positioned on your garment. You can of course use a ton of online inspiration as well, since color blocking has been around for quite some time and there are a ton of possibilities. So let's go ahead and take a look at this top right over here. As you can see that this part right over here, let me take a ruler so that we can see a little bit better, is actually the middle. So this part right over here is offset maybe by about 1.5 inches, and of course you can do whichever way you prefer, and that is in order to create this asymmetry designs. And then of course these curved lines that you see right over here, these are not only the part of the design element of this color blocking, but they also hide the bust darts, so you can still get a form-fitting silhouette around your bust. But now the busts are actually hiding and becoming a part of this design element. So I know that this part right over here is offset by about 1.5 inches from the middle. So here's my middle. Let's go ahead and take about 1.5 inches. And again, you can take whatever measurement you would like, whatever you think is going to fit you and your design. Another thing that I already know is the distance from here at the top, so the top of the neckline, all the way to this point right over here. Let's go ahead and measure that, and that is about 3 inches. So right over here from the top of the neckline at the middle, I'm gonna go ahead and mark 3 inches. Again, you can mark whatever measurement you would like. And now all we have to do is actually to connect a couple of points. So this is the first point, this is the second point, and this point right over here going through the dart is going to be the third point. And that's how we're going to create that curved line that is going to not only to create a beautiful color block design, but is also going to hide this dart right over here. Now let's talk about the dart just for a second. Depending on what block you're using, your dart might be in a variety of different places. This dart might be actually in the armhole. That's how I prefer to draft my bodice blocks with darts. You can also have this dart a lot lower, a lot higher. It also might go right here in the shoulder line. So it really just depends on what method you were using in order to draft your bodice block. And as you know, we can actually shift this dart in a variety of different places in our garment. So it might happen that it is best if you shift this dart a little bit lower, so that way you get a better look for your color block design. So for example, let's say I want to shift this dart lower. There we go. I'm just gonna go ahead, make a straight line a little bit lower. This is my bust apex, and I'm gonna go ahead and cut this apart and shift my dart. So now what I want to do is I want the bottom of the curved line to be this part right over here. And I'm gonna go, let's say, and I'm going to connect the 3 points that we were talking about earlier. Let me outline mine in red. There we go. This red line is going to be the first line of the pattern piece. Now, what I want to do is I actually want to copy this dart onto this side of the pattern, so that way these two are identical. And I'm actually not going to cut anything apart. I'm just gonna go ahead and fold these two pattern pieces together, and I'm going to copy this exact line onto this pattern piece. It is currently in pencil, so that way you can't see too well, so let me outline that in red marker and you will see exactly what I mean. So now this part right over here is complete, and you guys let me know if this looks familiar, right? So the top part is complete. The last thing that we need to do is sort out these darts right over here and the bottom pattern piece of our garment. And here all I do is I let the actual pattern and the pattern lines to guide me. What I want is I want a really nice smooth curved line, so that when everything is sewn together, it looks like it was meant to be. So we don't want any sharp angles, we don't want any bumps, we don't want any dips. We just want a really nice smooth line. So now the dart, the bust dart, is actually hidden right over here. Let me color this in green so that way you can clearly see where that dart actually is. So right over here is where that dart is. So when we're cutting the pattern pieces, this is not going to be the fabric. This is actually going to be an empty space. Next, I'm simply going to copy everything on a new piece of paper. Now, when you're working on your color block top, you don't have to do that because obviously you already made your pattern, but I do find that for tutorials, clean lines definitely make it a little bit easier to understand what is going on the pattern. And this is how it looks when we have outlined everything. This is your final pattern piece. So this is pattern piece number 1, this is pattern piece number 2, and this will be pattern piece number 3. So what I do in order to be sure that I'm actually cutting my pattern pieces in the correct way, placing them on a fabric, number 1, mark the grain line. The grain line is going to be right over here, which was the center of the pattern. And by the way, the bottom pattern piece can also be cut on the fold because it is identical on both sides. So let's go ahead and mark the center of the pattern. There we go. You're going to disregard this green line right over here, but a parallel line to the center is going to give you the grain line on this pattern piece and also the grain line on this pattern piece. And also what I do after that, I write that this side up and this side up, meaning that these pattern pieces need to be cut with this side up. And as I mentioned, this pattern piece can actually be cut on the fold because it is identical on both sides. Here, 2 extra tips. Number 1, notches really help when we're working with curved pattern pieces that need to align, or when we're working with really long pattern pieces. In this case, we have curves on the top of our pattern piece. Therefore, placing a couple of notches will definitely help you when you're ready to assemble your fabric pieces together. Number 2, as always, all of my self-drafted patterns that I've done on my channel, there's a ton of tutorials I do without seam allowances included unless otherwise specified. So after I cut this apart, I will be adding seam allowances everywhere where there's going to be a seam. Now this is how it looks when the pattern is all cut apart. Let's go ahead and do exactly the same thing, but this time to a pattern without a dart. It can be a woven pattern, or let's say a woven bodice block without a dart, or a knit pattern, let's say a t-shirt or a tunic or a knit bodice block, whatever you have available. And here the steps are really easy and straightforward. Since we're working without a dart, you can draw lines however your heart desires. Just go ahead, make your color block design, and you're done. Here I have cut a smaller version from the fabric scraps that I had. This is not going to be an actual garment. This is just for the visual purposes only, so that way you can see how it all comes together. So that way you can have the cleanest look possible when you're ready to put this blouse together. Let's go ahead and start with these two pattern pieces first. Place them right sides together, aligning at the notches, and also let's sew them with the seam allowance that you selected. Now for this particular pattern, I like to press my seam allowances up and I sew them together. Therefore, we're not pressing your seam allowances open, as I find that it's better if you actually sew your seam allowances together. Once that is done, let's go ahead and take a look. And when we're working with color block designs like these, especially when we're working on the curves, pressing is definitely one of the steps that you don't want to skip. It will give it that really nice finish. After you have sewn this with a straight stitch or a zigzag stitch, whatever type of fabric you're working with, don't forget to finish your seam allowances if you're working with wovens. As I mentioned, I like to finish seam allowances here together. So I serge both layers of the fabric together if I'm working with wovens. If you're working with knit fabrics, you can leave it as is. Now for this next step, we're going to take this pattern piece and now we're going to place this right sides together with this pattern piece, aligning at the notches, and now we're going to sew that. Once this is done, you are ready to go ahead and finish the rest of the pattern. You will do the shoulder seams, the side seams, the sleeves if you have any. Videos on how to finish the seams, how to finish the necklines and armholes, and how to hem your garments are going to be linked in the info box below. Now remember that you can create any color blocking scenario that you would like, so definitely look beyond what you see as the garments that I show you or maybe the techniques that I show you, and really just unleash your creativity and really create a garment that you absolutely love. Now if you're thinking, okay, I like it, but I would like to make this into a dress, well, I have the perfect tutorial for you. Click right over here to see how you can make any top into a dress. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy and thoughtful sewing. I'll see you soon. Bye!